in every phase of the election.
The design center of our system is the ability to collect results.
It's taken out of that black box where all got fed through it and said, here was a vote. We now get to see what it was and how it was determined.
We bring up a statement of votes cast in 2.5 seconds. We bring up what we call the oval visualization in 10 seconds. When they see the ovals, they realize, aha, now I have confidence.
ClearVote condenses what could be hundreds of thousands of ballots into a visual and easily searchable database.
Almost every single number on every single screen is clickable.
We can zero in on the actual votes that were cast, and then with very little effort be able to pull up that exact race on the ballot and the entire ballot card if necessary.
And each time you click, it peels the onion that much more, and allowing you to see the basis by which we decided or concluded that that number is the way it is.
We can do not just a sampling. We can in fact verify that every image, every ballot is counted properly.
It ends all question, it gives finality to the election process, and it gives us a visual aid that we've never had before. ClearVote, to me, has been the greatest advancement in the election process within the last 100 years. Seeing is believing.
So as you may have gathered from that video, we are a 100% paper voting system. We believe that is a key element to the security and auditability of any voting system. So every voter that comes in is going to get an identical paper ballot, whether they vote through our accessible voting system or if they're given a paper ballot to mark. And then those ballots, are just scanned through the precinct tabulator in each precinct. But then what our system does, and everything you see here is a commercial off-the-shelf component with the exception of this metal encasement around our tabulator. All the inside components are generally available. So it makes it easy. It makes you less beholden on us as a vendor. But we believe that gives our clients the greatest amount of control, the greatest amount of cost efficiencies, and the planned obsolescence of the system is removed from the element. So while I'm doing some of this, I wanted to introduce two people that are here with me. Ingrid Giordano is our regional sales manager for Pennsylvania, and Kier Holman is our sales engineer for the company. So Ingrid, do you want to talk a little bit about certification?
Sure.
Set the stage.
So as Bill mentioned, we are federally, or what is called EAC, Election Assistance Commission certified. And that happened for ClearVote in February of this year. So we are federally certified, and in talking to the division, or the Department of State here in Pennsylvania, what they told us is that there was a very specific single action crossover rule that's unique to Pennsylvania and nobody else. And so we have developed that into our system and shared it with the department, and they've approved that it does do what it's supposed to do for Pennsylvania. So we are on, since we are federally certified, we are now on a 6-month schedule of updating that federal certification. We'll be submitting the change for Pennsylvania to the federal test labs in August. And with that report and conclusion of a new version of certification, we will share that information concurrently with the Department of State here. And they will do the testing that they need to do immediately following the test report from the federal government. So we're thinking that we will probably be through certification at the end of the year. When I talked to Jonathan Marks, who's the head of the Department of Elections, what he shared with me is that it's a priority for them to have all the voting systems certified by the end of the year to give everybody a maximum amount of choice in which technology best suits their county. So that is our plan. Like I said, we've already completed our development and we're preparing our our submission to the federal test lab, and then we'll go through the Pennsylvania certification shortly thereafter. Y'all are probably aware Pennsylvania has an excellent team at the elections department, and they are well prepared to work with the federal test labs to get an expedited certification process for all the vendors, not just ClearVote, but everyone at the same time. So we are bringing in the paper-based system that you'll see here today. It's the precinct-based tabletop scanner, the ballot marking device for a lot of counties in Pennsylvania that are used to fully electronic voting system. That is a little bit of a departure. The ballot marking device allows for an accessible marking session and audio session. We also have tactile audio assistance devices that go with the system. But all of the ballots within a precinct would go through our tabulator, our digital tabulator there that you see on the tabletop there. So you have one point of tabulation within the polling location. And then we do offer probably one of our first products that we've been deploying in the West Coast, in Oregon and Washington, along with New York and Florida, is our tabulation system that is a central-based system. And that will also be a part of our certified solution in Pennsylvania to do the absentee. And for any counties that choose to collect ballots and tabulate them centrally, we'll be offering that as well.
Awesome. So you guys saw us set up the precinct system. This is what we kind of proposed as your normal precinct setup. It has one accessible voting unit and one precinct tabulator. A few things that are unique about our precinct tabulator. I mentioned that it's all commercial off-the-shelf components. Everything within this is generally available stuff, easily replaceable. The UP, I think there's only 5 components: a power source, a scanner, a processing unit, a touch screen, for the voters, and then a USB. Yeah. So very minimal parts. We have a collapsible ballot bag that attaches to the back of this. One of the things that's unique about our voting system is nothing is done mechanically in the tabulation of the votes. Everything that we do, whether it's centrally or through this precinct unit, is to collect the ballot image, and we capture the highest quality ballot image of any voting system that's out there. We use 200 DPI grayscale, which is the same level that most court documents are required to be stored in. What that allows us to do is maintain a digital record of the image and still maintain the physical ballot for auditability. Because we're able to do that, we don't separate anything. If there's a write-in vote or anything like that, it just falls in the bag, and everything's done digitally. So you don't have to go back and kind of sift through individual ballots and count them by hand or remake them or anything like that. To put it into perspective, Pierce County, Washington was our first client, voting system client in the state of Washington. And they had to, they're a vote by mail state. They had to remake 56,000 ballots because of issues with voter intent, or for some reason it would not tabulate, so it had to be remade onto another ballot. I think they worked that out to it cost them about $10 per ballot to remake it, because they had to have a team of 2 to establish what it needed to go in there. We cut that down from 56,000 to 17 ballots in their first election using us. So there is a hard dollar return on investment that comes with our system that some of these other systems just don't offer. Any questions so far? Yes, ma'am.
You're saying you do paper ballot only. What about for someone who is blind?
Yep.
Or?
So that's what we have the accessible system for. So this, I just closed that session out. So This is built on a product called the Anywhere Ballot. And the Anywhere Ballot was an EAC-funded program to basically design a user interface that would allow any voter to vote from any platform, regardless of disability, cognitive or physical, and regardless of where they were, if they wanted to do it on a phone or over the internet, whatever. We use a browser interface which is not connected to the internet in any way, but it runs in kiosk mode on this machine, and it allows us to leverage that interface, that user interface. So I'm going to go, let me
Choose a 17-year-old.
excuse me?
One of the 17.
Okay.
Or you need me up there?
17, yeah, got it. So I just selected the ballot style for this particular voter. So your poll workers would select the ballot style for the voter. And if are you guys using electronic poll books?
No.
Okay. If you were ever to move to that and you had a barcode or some media that was created by that, you could use that to scan in and select the ballot style from there. But here we just did it manually. We've got multiple languages. It can be read in multiple languages, both audibly and on the screen. But we're going to select English here. We've got settings, right? So you can hear the sound. All this sound is machine generated from our design tool, and that's automatic. It doesn't require any work from the county. You can change colors. You can turn the sound off. You guys have all heard the sound demonstrated. But that is of particular interest for voters with visual impairments. So you can also leave the sound on. We have headphones that can plug into the unit. We can turn the screen off if the voter chooses to not have the screen up when they're voting. And then they can just listen. We have easy, what are they called?
So an audio tactile device.
Yes.
That allows the voter to navigate through the ballot by listening forward to the, forward arrow to the next contest.
Is that like a handheld that plugs in? Or
It is a USB plug into the tablet here. Other things that we can do, because it is a universal plug-in, is we can accommodate a voter's technology. If a voter comes in with a very specific joystick that they use on their wheelchair, for example, a sip and puff mouse. Most voters don't want to use a provided technology for sanitary reasons. I think I can understand that too. And they want to use their own, and it can plug in with this universal port as well. The rocker paddles, all kinds of different navigation devices can be plugged into this and used. Yes, ma'am.
If they get plugged into one, they plug into that ADA part, how long will it take for them to be at that machine?
Well, realize, and I think this is true to absolutely any accessible voting experience, right? And this has been true for many years now, that listening to those instructions and listening to the full ballot depends on the size of the ballot, of course, but I have in various parts of the country seen that take anywhere from 10 minutes for a pretty short ballot to maybe 30 minutes for an exceptionally long ballot. So it's just the length of time that takes. Now you do have that voter has the ability to speed up the voice of the system, and so if they are used to listening, which most visually impaired voters are, they're used to listening at a higher rate of speed and absorbing that content, then they can speed up that language. And they can turn up the sound and turn it down, all of the things that you would expect in that accessible experience. And one of the things that Bill talked about with the Anywhere ballot, that was really, the purpose of that project was to identify what is the most usable, best practice ballot experience for everyone, regardless of ability and regardless of disability. What covers the most amount of people, and that's why we have contrast, from white to black to white, or taking out yellow or adding yellow, having all of those different variations there for color blindness, the speed, of course, the volume. So there's lots of different options, and that seems like that would be When you're thinking about all these options, it seems like a lot on the front end, but what we have found is that working with voters who have a particular assistive need, that they like to learn about the voting system ahead of time. They like to come prepared and maybe spend a little bit of extra time learning about it prior to election day when they arrive, and they have a sense of what's going to work best for them. Do y'all have quite a number of assistive experienced voters? No?
No, I mean, we obviously have it available to every precinct.
Sure, because you have
Required
to,
but
right?
yeah, but do you have, I mean, I have not heard that a
Yeah.
lot of people use it.
But every once in a while, you'll get one person.
Every once in a while, and it doesn't have to be somebody with an assistive need.
Right.
It could be really anybody that wants to use it for that experience, right? But again, I find any transition like this, especially when you're doing a particular amount of outreach for voters with assistive needs, that it's great to have a demo unit in your office and go to different opportunities where you can educate those folks about what they'll be experiencing in the polling location, and it really makes a big difference for them.
Actually, Pennsylvania law requires us to have it out.
Oh,
So
great.
so
Right.
many days before the election, which we do out in the hall, that just
Sure.
came through, so.
I think that's universal to everyone. I think that's good. So there's a lot of different features to it, and that it's based on trying to cover the most amount of folks.
And then the touchscreen works pretty simply. It's got a next button here that you see when I change. It'll say I can skip this if I want to. This is a vote for 2, so it's going to ask me to vote for 2. If I try to vote for 3, it will warn me that I've overvoted. So it won't let me do that. And then once the ballot has been voted, it just says, it asks to print. You print that, and then it's coming off there. And it prints, because we were born as a audit system, we're a lot more tolerant. Our system's a lot more tolerant of skew, and so we're able to print off these low-cost Oki printers, where in a lot of places you need specialized paper, specialized ballots, and it can get quite expensive. So this duplex is up to a 19-inch ballot.
Can this then be used as just a ballot marking device?
Yep.
In addition to meeting your ADA requirement?
Absolutely. Yeah. 17 wouldn't work?
No, it's a different election, remember?
Oh, okay. I thought that's what you told me, to select 17.
No, I'm sorry.
Oh, so if you have something that someone tries to put in there, let's say they somehow got a hold of a ballot from last year and
Yes.
they try to reuse it, it's going
So
to
that
do
was
that.
a
See,
non-official.
you did that on purpose, good job.
Just demonstrating a feature.
Okay, so it's hard-coded to know exactly what it should be expecting.
Sure.
And
Absolutely.
can you do that down to the precinct level?
Yes.
Okay.
So
So if someone somehow gets a ballot, would hopefully not, but from one precinct and then tries to come and use it at a different precinct and then feeds it through that, it would beep at it because it's not the right precinct.
100%. I could not have explained that more effectively myself. But I will try, because I have a diagram that I made
Sorry
just
if I'm
for that
jumping ahead,
purpose
just
that I
something
skipped
came up.
over a little bit. So this is the architecture of our system. Clear design is where all the ballot definitions are created. And that's what Michael was just talking about. So we define out the ballots, we build the ballots in Clear Design. That creates an accessible definition file and a ballot definition file that is used to program both the access and the cast machines. So that would be done, well in advance of the election. Once they're programmed, then they're ready to go out. They're tested in here, and then they're ready to go out to the precincts. This entire setup can fit in the trunk of a car. The precinct machine weighs about 30 pounds. The ballot bag, as I mentioned, folds flat and can hold about 1,000 to 1,300 ballots, depending on your paper stock. We're very flexible on the types of stock. We don't require any proprietary paper, which a lot of voting systems do. As long as it's been tested and certified by us, we're good.
Your ballot's the scanned ballot right there.
If I may, if we can back up also to your question about programming the devices. So from Clear Design, we have a ballot definition file that informs the cast unit what to expect. Here are all the possible ballot styles within the county. And the same thing happens with the clear access machine or the clear access unit. A file says, here are all the various ballot styles for this upcoming election. During the testing and preparation to get these tested and then packed up and sent out to the polling location, that is when you inform each individual unit, you now belong to precinct 101. And you will only accommodate the ballot for precinct 101 or the collection of ballots. Same thing for the access unit, so that you don't have to have every single ballot readable or available on those machines when they go out to the precinct. So to protect against the very thing that you described, preventing the wrong ballot style from being introduced into that precinct.
So this is a ballot style that we can recognize on here. One of the things I think you'll notice is it's pretty quick to accept the ballot. One of the things that's different about our system is with every ballot that is counted through that system, we create a ballot image of both sides of the ballot that's retained on the media that would come back to the central office. So there is because we're built on a modern technology platform and the foundation of it is built on new code, for lack of a better term. There's no degradation in the speed of this machine, even when you get up to 1,000 votes on it. A lot of systems, older systems, will slow down as their memory begins to fill up. And with our system, that doesn't come into play. Yes, ma'am.
So you only have one of those in a precinct.
Yes, ma'am.
But how do you get there? I mean,
So depending on how the precinct is set up, if you pre-print the ballots, you would have those pre-printed ballots. Your voter would come in, they would identify themselves, be handed a ballot style, a paper ballot of their style, and then they would mark that in a voting booth, so just a standalone voting booth or a table, whatever is most efficient. And then once they're done, they would scan it through, and it doesn't take but 3 seconds to get that ballot tabulated. If you didn't want to pre-print the ballots, we have a ballot on demand system which could generate the ballot style once the voter came there, so that would eliminate the need to pre-print a tremendous amount of ballots.
but do they all print as slow as that?
I don't know. Well, the reason this prints a little bit slower is it typically has to warm up. Printers pull a lot of energy when they're printing, so the more often it's used, the faster it prints.
How many pages does it print a minute at optimum?
That's a good question. I don't know the answer to
It's
that. I
about
can find
80.
out. 80?
It's about 80. That's what I've
Okay.
seen on the specs for the
Okay.
OG, yeah.
So if you did ballot on demand, that's how you would generate it?
Yes, sir.
And is it thermal paper, or do you have to be putting ink in that thing?
Does require toner.
Yeah.
It's a small laser jet, so it doesn't require like an ink jet, which is, goes through ink far more quickly. It is not thermal. The cost of the paper is lower and not proprietary. But yes, each printer would need to have the toner checked
Do we know what
as part of the LNA.
Do we know what the capacity of like a toner cartridge?
Yeah, how
It's
many can
usually
you
about
print?
4,000 to 6,000 pages.
Is that one-sided, or?
That would be one, so they're rated for one-sided, so it would be cut that in half for a duplex ballot.
So you're saying that if you had a ballot on demand, 4,000 to 6,000 single-sided, half if it was duplex,
Right.
or you could pre-print them.
Right.
And in
Or you could
most,
do maybe if you had
Or
more,
a
I guess you
hybrid.
could almost do the hybrid
Yep.
anyway. Okay.
if you have, or if you ever had any vote centers or early voting where anybody in the county could come and cast their ballot, then ballot on demand makes a whole lot of sense, because then you don't have stacks and stacks of every ballot style. In a precinct with only one or two ballot styles, or in the case of a primary, you'd have the various party ballots, then pre-printed ballots make more sense, because you don't have to deploy that many of them. And it makes it easier for the poll workers as well.
Right. Well, my guess would be ballot on demand, you probably would have, if you would have it, you would have it at like the election office.
Yeah.
And then you would have pre-printed of so many ballots, and then if you run short or close to short, then you print them.
Yeah.
And then
When
you
you're
have
down
the
to
rover send them
150
out.
ballots,
Yeah.
run another 500.
So that's a lot of extra work for you.
Well, it would be, yeah, I mean, but it would be nice about it is you could possibly eliminate the number of pre-printed ballots you would have to
Lot of
print,
waste,
because you would be able to eliminate waste, because you could have a smaller number. So you'd have to use that accounting degree I have, but you know what I'm saying. You would have to work on how many you want to print, try to figure that out. But if you did run short, you would have the ability to print more without being like, oh no, what am I going to do because I didn't print enough ballots? But you wouldn't, like, you know how the Pennsylvania law is 110%. If you had a way to do ballot on demand that you could get it out to the precinct, you could do less than the 110%. So it'd be a way to kind of save. There's kind of a way you can save money. That's why I was when I was saying about hybrid, I wouldn't have it at a polling location, but as a central location, possibly, yes.
Or a few.
Yeah, most of the people that have the in-precinct ballot on demand are places that have vote centers, where they don't, they need to have every ballot style available, and they don't want to pre-print all those.
Yeah, we don't have vote centers in Pennsylvania.
Yeah. But our ballot on demand system does have the ability to generate like mass-produced ballots in your central office, or do a one-to-one thing. So, yes, ma'am.
Are you at all concerned about people reaching in that bag back there and pulling out some of the votes?
Yeah, this is sealed. During the election, it zips closed. It has security seals on the back of the machine that connect the ballot bag to the machine, and that close these two loops here. So that would be closed at the beginning of the election day and would not be reopened.
And I'm sorry, you did say it does seal to the back of the machine as well.
Yeah, there's I don't know.
And you're talking like a seal, like a plastic seal that you would.
You could use a numbered seal,
Our
just like you do
video
for your
actually
supply
shows that.
bags.
Yeah.
Oftentimes those wired number seals are excellent for this. They're inexpensive. Inspectors are accustomed to them, and it does prevent any penetration of the ballot box during the voting
And I'm
period.
sorry, how many did you say that can hold?
About 1,000 to 1,300. And I apologize for us bouncing around a little bit, but we do have a video that talks a little bit about the ClearVote machine. So.
ClearCast. Clear ballots digital scan, tabletop precinct scanner. ClearCast is an EAC certified system that provides unparalleled transparency and confidence in the results of your election through ClearVote's groundbreaking vote visualization tabulation software. ClearCast leverages commercially available components for high performance and modern technology in a machine with the smallest footprint in the industry. Because ClearCast uses commercially available components, it is able to leverage a simply designed, inexpensive ballot box with a small footprint. Our ballot box attaches securely to the ClearCast machine with standard ties and has a capacity of 1,000 ballots. ClearCast includes a commercial-grade scanner. Ballots scanned are captured by the system using a high-performance white light scanner, which creates a ballot image in 200 dpi grayscale, the highest quality ballot image in the industry. Ballot images are stored in 3 redundant locations for security purposes. ClearCast is built on a modern technology platform, which means our precinct scanners maintain their speed no matter how many votes are cast. As the first software-driven precinct tabulator, it allows flexibility and customization. Alerts can be configured to match your jurisdiction's needs. ClearCast has been designed to make the most of your warehouse space. 9 ClearCast machines make up the same footprint as 2 of ClearVote's competitors, making transportation and storage easier and more cost-effective. At the end of the day, when your election is done, our ballot box becomes your ballot and digital media transport case to carry the election artifacts back to your central tabulation location. ClearCast is the first precinct system that allows election officials to show the math behind their election results, which is needed now more than ever. ClearCast streamlines your election operations, providing you with the highest performing, most compact modern technology in the industry. Election officials and voters can have the confidence that every vote was counted as cast.
So that's another point that we found is important, and it was I think part of the initial design, but we didn't realize how valuable it would be to the jurisdictions that we're working with. The footprint for storage of this. We have like a baker's cart that we've outfitted with a bunch of power strips, and we can store 9 of these machines and program them on those carts in the space it would take, of 2 of our competitor systems. So if space is a concern, this is a great way to free up a lot of useful space in your warehouse.
I have a question for you. Do you currently have your inspectors deliver the equipment to the polling location? Do they come pick it up, or
The judges of election, it's okay.
Yeah.
Judge of election come to our office to pick up their election supplies, but then of course we're DRE right now, so we then deliver the voting machines to the actual precincts.
Okay. Well, this is very much designed to let those judges also pick up the voting equipment. It'll be in a sealed carrying case with wheels on it. You can seal it with that same type of numbered seal, ensuring that it's not accessed and tampered with leading up to the time that it arrives at the polling location. And it fits in everyone's car, as opposed to having a great big ballot box that typically you need a truck. So that was really part of the reason for the design of the smaller carrying case ballot box, as opposed to the great big ones.
Are those collapsible?
They are. Mm-hmm.
Only reason why, because right now, like you're saying, 1,000 to 1,300 ballots. We have some precincts that have a lot of registered voters at this point. So in high volume elections, definitely would have to be multiple boxes.
So two of the carrying cases come with each machine.
Okay.
So you could absolutely pause any voters from inserting their ballot into the scanner at a point where, and you may have seen the little window on the side, it's just translucent, not transparent, allows you to see if it's being filled up. And you could also train those judges to look at the public count that's on the screen at all times and say, at about 1,000 ballots, it'd be a good idea to just kind of take a minute and attach the second empty ballot box, and then seal up the counted ballots and store those until they're returned on election night.
Yes, ma'am.
How much is your machine?
We haven't submitted any pricing to the state, but they run, I believe in other states, they're roughly $5,000.
That's for the scanner?
For the scanner, yeah, with scanner, ballot box, a year of maintenance, and a case. It comes with a soft-sided case. Yeah, the storage media.
Did I hear it say 3 in the presentation you had there? Was it 3 different ways that it stores memory?
So we have two USBs here, and then there's a hard drive, an internal hard drive where it's stored as well. Yes, sir.
Going back to the ballot on demand concept, would it be conceivable to have, we have rovers.
Yes.
That go and they each have assigned precincts that they check on throughout the day, whatever's needed. So if we were to do a hybrid type ballot creation that, like Mike talked about, where let's say for round numbers, the precincts has 1,000 registered voters, we expect it to be a 60% turnout, so you print 600 or 700 of these, and suddenly something's happened everywhere.
Election becomes popular.
So now you need. So can a rover carry some sort of medium that they could then go produce ballots? For example, we have county-run magisterial district judge offices located around the county. So could a rover, stop in at a nearby county-owned office with county-owned printers and so on, generate another 100 ballots from a USB stick, and then deliver them to the polling place? I'm just trying to, our county is not that
Yeah.
expansive that it's impossible to come back here and get some, but I'm just thinking about on the run kind
For
of
a
thing.
couple of reasons, we probably want to stick with the approved, I won't say certified, because it's not part of the voting system per se, but the ballot on demand printer, kind of dedicated, if you will.
Okay.
And it's going to be able to duplex the ballot. And, you know, all printers have different settings. I would be a little nervous about using a printer that you haven't tested before each election to make sure that somebody else hasn't used it, changed the settings on it,
Okay.
and then it's not going to accurately print your ballots.
Right, but
That would be my biggest
It would
concern.
reject it if there's something wrong with it.
It would, but then
But you
you
don't
would
want
have printed
voters
those
standing there
ballots.
with
Yeah.
rejected ballots.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
I would use a dedicated printer.
Okay.
I'd use it.
Yeah, probably the better option for your rovers would be, you know, having the central office fielding calls from the precincts. Hey, we're low. We're going to generate these things. The rover comes, gets them, and delivers them.
Gotcha.
You know, that way you're centralizing the creation of those, and there's less points of failure. So, yes, ma'am.
I have down 4-hour battery life. Is that accurate, or
Yeah,
is that
yeah,
not?
4.5. The on this machine, I think the federal standard is 2.
Is that built in? Or is that a separate?
It is built in.
Yeah.
It is built in and it is included. And if it is plugged in, it is charging.
Yeah. It'll run without the battery on.
And one of the things that I hope you take away from this conversation today is that, you know, using those off-the-shelf components that we've talked about, meaning commercially available, as time goes on, the idea is that battery technology will get better. Processors will get better. Scanners will get better. I mean, we've just seen that in technology in our own personal lives. Our phones, you know, change every couple of years now, right? As that happens, we are on a path to upgrade the components in the system with new, better, commercially available components and break that cycle of obsolescence of the voting systems that have been in the marketplace for decades now. They're very purpose-built. You know, sometimes various components are made just for that voting machine and nothing else. And so our methodology behind this design is we have a thermal printer in here that, you know, if a better printer comes out 5 years from now, 10 years from now, it would be easily replaced in the voting system and it could be upgraded, and then you get more life out of that investment that you put in now. And that goes for the processor, the printer, you know, all the media, the battery, all those types of things. Yes, ma'am.
You make it sound very simple, but something I heard from one of the other presenters was that every time you change something, you have to go through recertification. Is that true or not true?
So it is true. It is true. But I guess my point is that in our world where we are upgrading the system every 6 months, every year to improve it from a software standpoint, that we would also take that opportunity to upgrade to a new component in the units themselves to give our customers that flexibility, rather than just saying we're no longer making this machine anymore, you have to go buy a new one.
That's unique because, for instance, the voting machines we have now are capable of accepting a paper ballot,
Right.
but it has never been approved, and now they say they're obsolete and they're not going to do that. So it's unusual for me to hear that somebody's willing to go back and go through that process again and upgrade them.
It does make us different.
Yeah, this is the foundation of our company. You know, we were built, you know, because we saw the lack of innovation that has existed in elections for decades, right? I think people have used certification as a barrier to innovation, and the way we saw our opportunity was, look, if we can come in here and deliver on innovation, deliver something that's different, and commit to improving this, and I think we've been through 6 certifications in Oregon, state certifications. We're working on our 2nd federal certification that will be what we put through Pennsylvania, and we have a release that is going to be, you know, our 3rd federal certification planned for 2021 or 2020 for use in 2021. So that's the plan. Yes, sir.
Okay, back to costs. even though I really don't care, because I'm not paying it. The preprint, then you do it on 20-pound paper, and
20's a little thin. I think our
minimum is,
I think we've got a range between, what is it, between 60 and 80, or here?
Our best practices starts around 60 pounds. When you start to get 40 pounds and above, though, it really does a decent ballot. Best practices between 60 and 100 pounds.
We try to be as flexible as possible, but at some point
what's the
it
estimated
becomes.
cost, pre-printing versus estimated cost of using printing on demand?
So
Cost per ballot, yeah.
Do you have like a general idea
a
of cost per?
pre-printed ballot
Yeah.
can cost anywhere from, I'm going to say, I've heard estimates as low as 8 to 10 cents, and as high, you know, in some places of the country where it's 25 cents, even 50 cents if it's a very big ballot. So it really does depend on the size of the ballot, and we are not a ballot printer, we're not a
Yeah.
commercial printer.
Okay.
We allow our customers to work with local printers. I know that Pennsylvania, most of the jurisdictions work with William Penn. I don't know if you do, but you know, we do give our customers that flexibility, because all across the country everybody wants to work with a local printer that can print things at the last minute, maybe be sensitive to the economies of it, and you know, has a long working relationship with it.
You just give them some type of file with your requirements of what would work on your equipment, I'm assuming, and then that's what
Yep.
you would give to
So
the printer.
we
and
go
then-
through a short testing period. We certify those printers. We say, you know, these are our standards, and this is how you print our ballots. And they typically will run some ballots for us, and then we test them for our customers to make sure that they meet those standards. And then we say, yeah, that's a good solution for you. And you know, we've had cases where some counties want to use their own print shops. We recommend that same process. So
Yep.
we're not charging for it. We're just doing that as a courtesy to our
Yeah, and again,
customers.
and it goes back to, you know, giving you guys control over your own costs, right? So you can use a printer if you find that that's the best, you know, approach. But if you want to cut some costs out of it and you've got the ability to print in-house, you know, you have the ability to do that, and we'll work with you or your printers, you know, to make sure that works. Yes, ma'am.
The other thing I noticed that's unique about yours is that appears to be a metal case. Everybody else is coming
Yes.
with plastic.
Yes.
Like impact rating, if that's dropped, what are the chances of it breaking?
Slim. You know, the idea behind this was we wanted to build, you know, something that was like a tank, only lighter. You know, but something that was going to be durable, was going to protect the components internally, and maximize, you know, the useful life of the machine. So.
And your useful life is?
I'll tell you when we get there. We only just got certified in February, so
So-
I'd like to say 20 years, but you know, that's just my opinion.
With that plan that we talked about, I mean, I think 15 to 20 years is realistic. Being able to change out a processor to something new, change out printers as they become improved over time, that type of thing.
Yeah, and we're a young company. You know, we're very nimble. You know, we don't have 7 layers of management. If we want to, you know, work out a licensing plan that says, look, after 4 years or 5 years, we're gonna, you know, do a refresh of you know, the hardware, of the software, or whatever. You know, we're actually discussing those type of programs internally right now, and we look forward to offering those, you know, to places that are interested in that kind of scenario.
So you went into business in 2009, you're 10 years old?
Yes, ma'am.
And how many places are you in now?
We have 13 jurisdictions using our voting system in Oregon. We have 10 in Washington, 7 in Florida,
6 in New York.
6 in New York,
The state of Maryland.
the state of Maryland, the state of Vermont.
Uses our system for audit.
Yeah.
We audit 100% of ballots in Maryland with our technology.
And then we have 1 jurisdiction in Wisconsin and 1 jurisdiction in Ohio that are using this system.
And you're new to PA, like just starting selling is my understanding, is that correct?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
And the same with Wisconsin and Ohio. We just started there too.
Yeah. And since you guys are coming from a DRE, kind of background, I want to jump into our tabulation system, because most folks that we work with, at least in Ohio, that are coming from a DRE, the big fear is, how are we going to handle paper, right? This is a new thing for you. And one of the things I think is most valuable about our system is all the things that caused people to move to a DRE system in the past. I feel like we address through our software, and we eliminate a lot of the really specific pain points that a marked paper ballot by a human being caused. But we retain all the benefit and the auditability of having a actual voter marked document that you can go back to. So with that,
Bill, can I just interrupt? I'm sorry.
Yes.
Definitely want to see that. I do. But we're kind of at the time where we would have normally had for our commissioner presentation, so I just wanted to make sure. I don't know if they have something they need to go to or have to do. So I just didn't know if they had any other questions or anything you absolutely need them to see.
This is what they need.
I don't know
to see.
how long that is. So.
This is our superpower. This is the one thing that we do that no one else does. If you have noticed the tablecloth, it's what makes us different. So I wanted you guys to at least see that before you left.
And we can do a brief start to it so they can kind of get the idea, and then if we go deeper later, that's fine.
Yeah.
That's up to them. I don't know what their time frame
Your
looks
call.
like. So.
Good. Okay. Thank you.
You want me to jump into it?
Yes, please.
Okay.
So we're going to now jump into our live. This is actual product.
Is that showing the dashboard?
It is.
Okay. So first things first, you'll notice we're running in what looks like an internet browser. The reason is because it's Google Chrome, it's a browser. But just be aware we're not at all touching the internet. This is all local stuff. Our software is built in a browser environment, which gives you certain tools that you can take advantage of, and I'll point some of those out as we go through. This is our dashboard for a demonstration election. I actually scanned these ballots at home last week in order to get ready for this. There's a lot of different numbers here. We will drill into some of them as we go along. You have some tools available to you. Because we're in the browser environment, I can make things larger and smaller very easily. So if there's certain things that you want to do that for as you're using the software, you have that ability natively in the browser environment. So with that, I'm going to open up a statement of votes cast. And what this is just essentially election totals, who won, who lost, etc. I want to look at the example of Washington here, our candidate under the governor's race. Notice that he won this race pretty handily, 48-22 in this particular case. But if we wanted to see how he won and actually see his votes, we could click on them. And you'll see that open up, and you'll actually see his votes populate. Now we have built the straight party environment here, so we actually tell you here that empty ovals are straight parties. So when you see these empty ovals down here that are votes for Washington, it's because he was included on a straight party ticket. These votes are ranked from left to right, top to bottom in order of system confidence. So you'll notice the really well filled in ovals as I hover over this one here and the race box opens up. You see a dark oval filled in for George Washington there. But if we come down here, this was still a vote we counted for George Washington, but it's the least confident in the list. So if somebody didn't really follow instructions, they actually just put a slash through the oval, but we counted that too. So where some systems tally the votes and they say, hey, we had 25 votes for candidate A and 20 votes for candidate B, we assume accuracy, but they don't show you those votes. We will actually show you the votes. And a lot of things you see when you hover over, you'll notice that we'll bring up the whole race box and show you everything within that contest. And to that end, if we drop down just one level, we have the overvotes that Washington was involved in. So if I hover over this oval here, and I hope everybody can see this on the smaller screen. If you can't, feel free to come up and crowd me. But we have a vote for one race, and somebody pretty clearly filled in both ovals. So that would be an overvote, and no vote would have been counted. But another example that we will show you is something like this. Maybe when somebody looks to have corrected a mistake they made on the ballot. We will show you those as well. And pretending for a second that you guys determined that this was a mistake that somebody tried to correct on their ballot, we can actually click on that oval and bring up the whole ballot. Notice the quality of the image. That's 200 DPI grayscale. It's the best image you'll see of any company that comes in here of a scanned paper ballot. That does meet federal records retention requirements. So if you notice on the left, here's kind of a summary of the races, and notice the colors. The kind of the lavender or purple indicates an undervote, blank voted, undervote. So nobody voted the straight party ticket here on this ballot. The red indicates your overvote, the whole reason we came to this ballot. And the green are actual good votes for candidates in other races. So we actually give you the ability to adjudicate this ballot digitally. So we can modify this adjudication, go here and call this a votable ballot, and say we're going to vote it. Here's our undervote, and that's accurate. But here's the one that we've determined that somebody tried to correct a mistake. So I can actually, on the screen, remove the vote for Adams, and that will now be a good vote for Washington. And it will move from the overvoted category to a good vote for Washington. And you could go through and adjudicate the rest of the ballot if you need to. I happen to know this ballot is otherwise good, and you can then save this. And here's the point.
Can I jump in for just a second?
Mm-hmm.
So realize that you would find overvotes and marks like that from absentee ballots, where the voter sent in their ballot and they're not actually in the precinct on election day. The ClearCast machine, if somebody were to make that same mistake, it would stop them when they try to insert that ballot. It would kick it back out and it would say, you have an overvoted contest on the ballot. You can spoil the ballot, get a new one from the folks at the table, or you could override it and push it through. It will count everything else on the ballot appropriately. It just won't count that overvote, right? So that's important to realize. You know, when you look at our tabulation system, you're not going to be overwhelmed with huge, large numbers of overvotes, because those will really be only isolated to your absentee ballots that are returned by mail.
Can you program that to say how or what you want to kick back?
Absolutely. So most folks do an overvote, or they do a completely blank ballot, assuming the voter might have made a mistake if they bothered to come to the polling location and didn't mark anything on the ballot. Yes, sir, do you have a question?
How do you authenticate the amended ballot that's being amended?
Karen?
I'll let Carrie answer the question.
I'm sorry,
How do you authenticate? How is it recorded that it's been amended?
Well, we do log every action that's done. It's done by the user that logged in. Certainly best practices, we would recommend maybe a team of 2 do it together, but then there's always a log that this was done.
Okay.
And that permission is only given to specific user roles. So.
And so as an example, I'll just go ahead and get my glasses back on. The card resolutions, here happens to be the one we just did.
Okay.
So it's always logged, and here's the user. Now I just have a generic user in here, but that would be, you know, if a particular person logged in to do it, you would know it. And it's time and date stamped as well. Yes, ma'am.
So if you're changing somebody's ballot, what do? Print it out and then staple them together, or?
Actually, that's the beauty of our system. In many of the legacy systems, you would have to do something like that. But we always retain that, in fact, we always retain the exact image that the voter sent in, so you can point to it and say, this is why we changed this ballot.
So it's only electronic.
Right.
Then you don't
exactly.
have the paper ballot corrected like the
Now, you
rest.
certainly still have that ballot, and we just make it possible that you don't have to go find all of those. You know, you could always go get it if you needed to, and actually there's a road map on our ballots. If you look at the top, this particular number points to exactly where that ballot is. So if you needed to go find it, you could.
does that tell you the precinct or the case number, or?
Depends on how you scanned it. There are a number of different options. It could be by precinct. It could be by, you could have it separated by absentee. This is in your pile of absentee ballots, box number 13, ballot number 12. And then you would go to that box and you find that ballot.
And you probably only would want to adjudicate for overvotes on your absentees. And, with our system, you're able to digitally sort out from, all the ballots that have been tabulated, just the absentees or just a specific batch, if that's what you were looking for.
And some counties don't change any adjudication at all unless they have a very, very close contest. If you want to, if the margins are wide and you don't have attorneys looking for, votes that they can pick up to make a difference, you certainly have the entire, this is no different from what you've had in a voting system before. This just gives you the opportunity to identify it without having to go back and look for those ballots manually.
Yeah, and again, it all goes back to putting the control back in your hands. We're not telling you how to adjudicate these. We're not telling you what to do with them, if anything. What we are providing you is, in a close contest, when it's a 3-vote difference, and at 2 o'clock in the morning on Tuesday night that you're going to have lawyers and candidates in your office, you want to know that these things are out there, because then it allows you to make decisions, or at least show that you've got all the information available without having to pull every ballot and do a whole total hand count. Yes, ma'am.
You said that the machine itself takes up less room, but we're going to have to store paper and large sheets of paper, anywhere from 60 to 100 pounds. So there's weight involved and size, and then you said the federal law requires you to keep it. How long do we have to keep it?
I don't know.
That varies from state to state, actually.
22 months,
it's
typically, right?
18 to 22 months. We have some of our customers in Florida who have stopped archiving their paper after a certain amount of time because their law, not Pennsylvania law, their law says that having the digital image is sufficient. So that's really a Pennsylvania, question and answer rather than, you can keep the ballots as long as you want to.
You have paper ballots now, to some degree, yes?
Absentee, yes.
Okay, so whatever retention law applies to those, it would be the same, I would think.
Top of my head, I can't remember. I can find out.
So a couple other things to look at on this screen really quick, especially if we have some people that need to leave. These are actually undervotes. So a vote was not counted for George Washington here.
Yes, we do.
If I click on that and look at the whole ballot, I can see why. Somebody circled a candidate's name here and did not fill in the oval and didn't even really touch the oval. So we have an undervote for Washington. I would argue that it could be a real vote for Washington. It would, again, Bill made a perfect point here. It's not my decision, it's not our decision, but we show you this is there. The reason I wanted to show you this example specifically is I talked about the colors over here earlier. So if you remember what I was saying, this lavender or purple or whatever you want to call it is an undervote, but green is actually a good vote for somebody. And the reason these were counted as good votes is this person's circles actually went through the ovals. And it counted votes for them, and they're probably good votes. I mean, they meant to vote for these folks. They circled their names. But they didn't hit the oval here. So imagine this particular race might have, a 1 or a 2 vote difference. You'll want to know these are out there, and our system will show it to you. We essentially database every extraneous mark on the ballot and show it to you. One last example on this particular page. These are votes that were counted for other people at the bottom. So as I'm hovering over this, but we have flagged them because we think you might want to look at them. So in this particular case, a vote was counted for John Adams, but I don't know how, maybe the people in the front row, but I don't know if everybody else can see. There seems to be a little dot in George Washington's oval. If we look at that whole ballot, it looks like maybe somebody rested their pen there. Now notice the color on the side. There is a vote for John Adams, and I would argue that this vote has been counted accurately, like it should. Maybe somebody just rested their pen, maybe they dropped their pen or something like that. Once again, though, our system sees this and says, hey, take a look at this and make sure that this is counted properly. No other system is going to show you things like this. I wouldn't do anything with this ballot, and I doubt you would either, but at least we show it to you to make sure. If we go back to our dashboard real quick, I'll show you a couple of other things. Our scanners, and we actually have a video of one of our main scanners that scans anywhere from 4,000 to 7,000 ballots an hour, and that depends on the length of your ballot. And when we give those throughput numbers, those are actual throughput numbers, meaning our scanners don't stop because it finds something weird. A lot of the competition scanners will stop the whole process if it runs into particular issues. And here's a good example of that. So here are 4 cards that our software has said, hey, we have an image here, but we can't tell what it is. We can't parse out the votes. Well, let's look at why. I'll just click on the link, and pretty obvious why. Looks like this ballot was torn. The coding channel is gone. It can't tell anything about this ballot. But much like the adjudication of that overvote, we can actually adjudicate this ballot and give the votes to the people that deserve them. So I'll click vote there, and we can go through and adjudicate this ballot. I'm not going to take the time to go through this whole thing. It's the same process I've already shown you. But the point I want to make here, and for the record, I've sat on your side of the desk. I've been a director of elections in Ohio for several years and done other jobs within a Board of Elections office. The thing I like about this is we don't put any technology between the voter's pen and your eyes. So there's no remaking of a ballot that would be your interpretation of that voter's marks. We actually show you exactly what the voter submitted and allow you to work from that. And you can always then go back and review that. And again, it's the same piece of paper the voter sent in to you guys. So does that kind of make sense? One last example, and I'll turn the floor back over to Bill or Ingrid. We've got situations like this that once again we process what the voter sent in. This is what we would call a federal write-in absentee ballot. It would be legal in any jurisdiction in the country with the proper paperwork and the proper circumstances. We could actually scan this in and adjudicate a ballot such as this that was legally submitted. And once again, we don't have to get out an extra ballot and remake it. We actually work from the exact document the voter sent in to give those votes where they're legally able to be applied. So that's the kind of flexibility that our count system gives you, and the way that we process paper that I think we all believe is different than anyone else does.
What about write-in votes?
Great question.
Let's show you some write-ins. Okay, so here I happen to preset this up, and you'll have to excuse me. I gave this demonstration a lot in Ohio, so I have Woody Hayes as one of my
you can leave now.
I figured as much. I should have thought more about this. So here are actually images. As you saw from our software, we don't just look at the oval. We look at the whole race box. We look at the whole candidate space. So you'll see that we have filled in ovals with write-in names. If I scroll down, we have people that didn't fill in the ovals. So we separate those for you because I know that legally you guys cannot count those if the oval's not filled in. So we'll put those in a different spot so you can see them, but no danger of counting them. So as I go through this, I can open up this little box here and I can add a candidate's name. And just to be quick, I'll add W. Hayes. Add that candidate, and then I can just start adjudicating votes for Woody. And I'll just do a handful of them here. Then if I open this box back, I see that I've, oops, why'd you let me do that, Bill?
I can't see the full screen. You did it on a sign?
Yeah.
You dumped that box?
All right, I'm just going to move down and start over. So I can adjudicate votes for Woody Hayes. And then when I go back, I can click on those votes. I've done 8 of them, and proof them, make sure I haven't made any errors. And assuming I'm good, I go back and those are actually all gone. And I've worked with those, I can now move on. You know, if we have this as unassigned, but maybe I want to add a scattered, and I can adjudicate for scattered. So maybe I want to put my none of the aboves in there, my Mickey Mouses in there. And same deal applies. Once I do as many as I want to do, I can go proof them, come back, and then when I go back, those are out of my way.
Does that mean they've been counted? Or
Well,
are they just out somewhere?
It means that they've been dealt with and they're out of your way.
Okay.
And then what you ultimately get to is you can export your adjudications. It's warning me because I haven't gone through all of them. So I'll just bypass that. Ultimately, you end up with a CSV file that you can open in Excel that has your totals by precinct. You even have a link back to that ballot. If you want to take a look at it, you can. And so you're provided with a comprehensive report by precinct of every ballot you adjudicated. So you'll have all your scattereds or whatever. And my understanding is in Pennsylvania, you might have to count a lot of random write-in votes, right, for single candidates or whatever. And so any candidate you enter, then you can have access to that on the report and see them.
But is that added to the account, let's say? Never mind, I think I answered my question.
It doesn't import directly into ClearCount. It's an external utility at this point. We're working at integrating this functionality into ClearCount, but that's what we're shooting for.
Does ClearCount show number of write-in votes at least?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
It does, yeah.
Yeah.
So then you
And
could
you can
say
actually
50 write-in votes, and then you could have that.
You can
list
actually
then.
go to the write-in area of a contest, and you can hand count those from there, if if you weren't using this tool. But this automatically generates the report, which most people have to do manually, which is a pain in the butt.
Okay.
So here are some, I have zeros in most of these, but here are some write-in totals. Just because, if I didn't vote for any when I did this demonstration. But here's where your totals would be. And they appear in reports too. So when we do like a PDF report, a lot of options here that you can select for a paper-based report, or if you want to generate it in an XML, we can do that as well.
So there's two things, not to go into futures too deeply, but the roadmap for the write-in tool is step 1, we're integrating it into ClearCount. Step 2, we're exploring character recognition technology to see to what level we can automatically generate, bucket or put in buckets specific certified candidates.
For places that have
For places that have certified candidates, I'm saying.